Hi, y'all. I've been thinking a lot the last couple days about the concept of shallow hope and broken promises. I'm a millennial, so I've spent half my life dealing with this kind of chaos, and it's really hard to see past it. And I think that a lot of people now can see through the noise and see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And you can also see who's fighting for you. Right now, our leaders are being tested, and we can see who's actually keeping their promises and doing what they'd say they'd do for us. And so I thought I'd ask a couple questions about leadership. Who inspires you? And not only just inspires you to support them, but also inspires you to be a better person. Also, who's been fighting all along? It might not have been as obvious, but who's been keeping their promises and who's been fighting and who's been taking their time because we need to accept that resilience and honor them for it. And there's also the factor of communication. Who talks to us and who lets us know what they're doing for us and what they're trying to go for, and not lies or fabrications, but just straightforward facts and things that keep us informed because they genuinely care if we know. And those are the kind of things that we need in a leader, and those are the kind of things that we can look up to. But unfortunately, people aren't enough. People are mortal and people are flawed. And it's really hard to base your hope on something like that because it is kind of shallow and it isn't really enduring. So, why don't we base it on something that's survived for over 250 years? Why can't we base our hope on the concept of the United States of America and actually being united? We need to put forth ideas that support that because we've gotten away from those concepts and sometimes we just call ourselves America, but in truth, we are the United States. And it's time that we start acting like it and considering those across the aisle and not just walking across the aisle, but actually living across the aisle too. It's one thing to go and make compromises, but that's hard right now because people are in so much pain and we're united by that. We're united by the pain and the suffering, and we need to address greater issues because nobody wants to compromise right now. What we really need to do is focus on collaboration and being united and understanding that everyone has their own needs and that we can meet them if we work together. And I think the thing that we all need the most is hope. We are we've been so starved for it for so long that what we really need as a nation, as a people, is hope and true hope, not in a person, not in a thing, but a true hope and an ideal like United States where we can actually collaborate and make changes for all of us. I'm not an economist. I'm just a girl that likes board games and paid attention in high school. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that can come up with a really good plan, but I just wanted to propose this as kind of like a framework. Nothing really concrete, but just something that gives me hope and that I hope will give other people too. And when we're looking at the issues that we're facing right now, we really need to focus on the ones that are essential for our survival, such as the affordability and food prices. And we have opportunities to change that. Our farmers also need support too. And so we need to give them what they need to get back on their feet, and maybe a little bit so that they can pivot crops too. This will greatly help with our domestic food supply and bring prices down at the grocery store. And it's not just the individual person that's going to benefit, but also food manufacturers. And that'll help stimulate that little economy. And I think it would be really great too if we worked on the labor sourcing. If we made a program to hire workers from the metro area and help them move on to farms and more rural communities, I think that would not only stimulate the rural communities, but also help those people find good, dependable jobs. Will help them get affordable housing and food benefits so that they can have what they need to actually perform at work. And then that helps the farmers as well and anyone in those rural communities. It'll kind of bring life back to that part of the country with a lot more economic growth. And one of the ways we can also help the farmers out with this is give them incentives to be part of this program and hiring these workers. Things like tax breaks for how many workers you hire and stuff like that can really help. And it'll really make a big difference not only in the farmer's bottom line, but also for the workers as well. And those in the community that depend on the business that they bring in. Another part of the plan that's really essential that'll help bring costs down for the farmers and all employers around America is universal health care with dental and vision as well. This is actually very essential because employers will no longer have to pay those benefits, and employers will no longer have to deal with L&I and issues like that. It'll give their HR department a little bit of breathing room, and it'll not only help keep the workforce healthy, but it'll keep everyone in the country healthy too. Because it's hard to be healthy and work hard when you have family members struggling that can't get medical benefits. And I think that this is a crucial time in America to acknowledge that we're having an issue with that and to deal with it. And everyone always asks, well, how do we pay for it? It's going to cost a lot of money. How do we pay for it? And that goes back to helping out the farmers. We bought back all their surplus that they couldn't sell on the open market, and now that gives us greater negotiating in the world stage. It gives us an advantage when it comes to trade. And there's one item that I thought might be really advantageous, and that's soybeans. It doesn't have a lot of domestic demand. However, it does sell well internationally, and it's already something that we can get right into and already produce because our farmers are already trying to export our goods. And we just have to make it more profitable for the farmers to sell to the US government and be part of this program than to sell alone by themselves. And we can do that in the form of tax credits. And that can be something based on the surplus that they sell us. We can use that to help make it more cost effective for them in the long run. And soybeans in particular are nice because they help us strengthen diplomatic relationships, and they really can help stabilize the global food system too. And farmers, of course, wouldn't have to sign up for this program. They wouldn't have to participate, but that doesn't mean that they still wouldn't reap some benefits because they would still be able to get free healthcare for all of their employees. So they're still benefiting even if they're not part of the program. And I think that'll really help America and as a whole. So this system would pretty much pay for itself. You'd have the surplus that we bought from the farmers going back into supplying the needs to keep the program up and also universal health care to keep America healthy and America safe. And I know there's probably a lot of holes in this plan. I'm no economist, I don't do the numbers, but I think it's a concept that is self-sustaining and really helpful to America as a whole, and not only strengthens our domestic situation, but also on an international stage as well. I don't think that actually does enough. It doesn't go quite far enough because what we really need to do is strengthen our transportation as well. We need to be able to ship things domestically at a lower cost. And one of the ways to do that is to invest in electric vehicles and not cars and trucks, but things like semi-trucks and trains and boats and planes and other things like that that can really transport large amounts of goods across the US without costing a fortune. To do that, we're going to have to invest in our infrastructure and invest in our grid, our power grid, because those electric vehicles are going to need to recharge. And not only will that help stimulate manufacturing, it'll also help get ready for things like AI because our current power grid isn't going to be able to handle that. And we need to start addressing those issues with renewable energy. And so why not just take that approach and start strengthening our power grid with renewable energy so that we can transport things across the country a lot cheaper, quicker, and more efficiently. And how are we going to pay for it? Well, I think the good way to do that is to have the businesses that are going to be using those services and those things also pay a little bit of a tax on it. And it's not going to be that much of a cost because they're saving so much money with worker benefits. And so it could actually be a trade-off. And so they're helping maintain the infrastructure that they're using and strengthening things like not only electricity, but our internet and things that, especially in rural areas, haven't been very well maintained. And being able to strengthen those lines helps us as a nation be able to communicate more efficiently. And I think that having big companies pay for that, especially when they're saving because they no longer have to pay benefits for their employees or have people working on like things in their HR department, like insurance companies and stuff, it will really help in the long run. And I think that it's possible that we could make it so that it's even more profitable for big companies without the benefits to pay a small tax just to help make our infrastructure more sound. There's one more. How do we pay for this? I mean, theoretically, the system would be pretty self-sustaining once it was going, but just one more thing of how do we get all of it started and the farmers supported from the beginning? And, well, I heard that there was something around $10 billion in the Department of Homeland Security funds, so I think this would be a pretty good use for it. And I'd like to propose something else too that goes just a little bit farther because one figure kept coming up in my mind as I was thinking about this, and I could clearly see that it was something that really needed to be addressed because we have had one leader that has stood up in our history and has guided the people through a period of extreme conflict, a period that was very hard and almost ended our country, and that was Abraham Lincoln. He's a founding member of the Republican Party and led our country through one of its most difficult times. I think that he's a leader that everyone can look up to and a true reminder of Republican values. And I think it also is ironic that he died from political violence. I think that putting in a clause to bring back the penny would be a great honor for him and very touching and respectful and something that we can consider when we're putting this idea forth. And this is just meant to be a framework. This isn't meant to be something that's an actual plan. I'm no economist. I'm just a lady looking at things and trying to make sense of it all. And I know that there's other people that do like to run the numbers, and maybe they can come up with a plan that is somewhat this kind of a concept, something that's self-sustaining, something that takes care of the whole country and is very bipartisan because it understands that we need to collaborate right now to do that. And so if this is something that sounds like a good idea to you, that sounds like the United States of America and sounds like something that you'd want to invest in and gives you hope as well, look to your leaders. Maybe pass this along to them and let them see that this is the kind of framework that I want. This is the framework that makes me believe in America again. And this gives me hope, and not just a shallow hope, but actually helps me see the future a lot brighter. And so we need to speak up and tell them that this is what I want. Because why wait? We don't have to wait for an opportunity to come. We can walk across the aisle and not just walk, but be there and be the United States of America. So I put this video in your hands now. Do with it as you would like. But if you truly believe that we can become a United States of America and focus on collaboration and not compromise, I think that we could truly be a great nation and truly understand what it takes to make America not only live up to its values and its morals, but to make its people really believe in the concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.